Venice did not get rich because it sat on water. It got rich because it turned water into a toll road, ships into balance sheet assets, and the sea into a supply chain that rivals had to rent. I'm Simon, and this is the Venetian machine. To the tourist eye, Venice is stone, glass, canals, bells, and soft light. To a banker's eye, it was a cold piece of design. A city built to move goods, price risk, store cargo, protect routes, and take a fee at each turn. The strange part is that Venice began with a weakness. It had little land. It could not feed itself with ease. It sat in a lagoon, exposed to flood, war, and trade shocks. Most states would see that as a trap. Venice turned it into discipline. If you cannot live from land, you must master flow. That single fact shaped the whole empire. Venice did not try to own the world. It tried to own the route. It placed itself between Europe and the East, between demand and supply, between risk and reward. Then it built the one thing every merchant wanted before profit, a way to move cargo with less chance of ruin. The first great lever was the arsenal. This was not just a yard for ships. It was a vast state-backed worksite, full of timber, rope, iron, canvas, oars, sails, arms, and trained men. In a world where most ships were slow to build and hard to fit out, Venice brought the chain under one roof. That was vertical control before the term existed. The state could count stock, store parts, train labor, and push work through set steps. A galley became more than a wooden hull. It became output from a public finance machine. Ship time fell. Repair time fell. The cost of delay fell. And in sea trade, delay is not just a nuisance. Delay is dead capital. If a ship leaves late, prices move. If a ship waits for parts, cargo sits idle. If a fleet is weak after a loss, rivals smell blood. Venice saw all of this clearly. The arsenal gave it speed, and speed gave it leverage. But ships alone do not create a monopoly. The next move was far sharper. Venice organized trade through state-backed convoys, the famous Mood. Merchants did not always sail as loose men in lone boats, praying their cargo would survive. The Republic set routes, set dates, gave armed cover, sold space, and tied private gain to public force. That one design changed the risk profile of the whole market. A merchant buying space on a Venetian galley was not just buying transport, he was buying time, guard, trust, route knowledge, and state force. He was buying risk control, and once risk could be cut, more capital came in. More capital filled ships, full ships paid fees, fees funded more ships and patrols. Patrols made trade safer. Safer trade pulled in more capital. The loop kept feeding itself. This is how supply chain power compounds. Venice also knew that cargo is worth more when the city can hold it, sort it, tax it, and release it at the right time. So warehousing was not a dull back office. It was asset control. Spices, silk, grain, metal, wool, and dye passed through spaces where the Republic could watch them, price them, and take its share. The dock was a ledger, the storehouse was a vault, the port was a market gate. In the Rialto, money and news moved together. Merchants traded goods, but they also traded facts. Which port was blocked? Which ruler needed cash? Which fleet was late? Which war might close a route? That flow of news gave Venice an edge as real as any fleet. Information was liquidity. A trader with faster news can buy before a price shifts. He can sell before a glut appears. He can hold stock when fear is too high. Venice became a place where price, risk, and rumor met in one dense room. The Republic also had a hard rule for outsiders: bring your goods, bring your cash, bring your links. But do not think the system belongs to you. Foreign merchants could trade, but under terms. German traders, for example, used the Fondaco dei Tedeschi, a controlled house near the Rialto. It gave them access, storage, and a place to do business. It also kept them visible, taxable, and inside Venetian rules. That is the genius of gated trade. A closed city misses profit. A fully open city loses control. Venice chose a third path. It let outsiders feed the market, while the Republic kept the gate, the court, the tax, the dock, and the route. Access was the product. Control was the margin. Now look at the wider map. Venice held ports, islands, treaty rights, and naval stations across key parts of the Adriatic and Eastern Mediterranean. Each point was not just a flag on a map, it was a cost cut, a risk hedge, or a claim on future cash flow. Crete mattered, Cyprus mattered, Dalmatian ports mattered, not because they looked grand on a wall chart, but because they helped protect lanes, stock ships, house cargo, and keep rival powers from choking the line. The city turned force into trade cover. A fort, a patrol, or a treaty was not just state spend, it was capital allocation. Spend silver today to cut losses at sea tomorrow. Pay for ships today to keep cargo moving next season. Build a wall around a port today, so the merchant tax still comes in next year. This was not romance. It was return on control. Even the Venetian ducat played its part. In long trade, men need trusted money. Deals might take months. Cargo might cross war zones. Partners might never meet face to face. A stable coin made settlement cleaner and lowered fear. It turned trust into metal. There was also a deeper finance layer. Venice could draw on the wealth of its own elite through public debt and forced loans when danger rose. Those claims could be traded, discounted, or held, which meant the state was not only taxing commerce, it was turning civic wealth into war finance and route defense. Private capital and public force sat on the same table. In a crisis, that speed of funding could decide whether a convoy sailed protected or sailed exposed. That kind of trust is not soft, it is an asset. A coin that clears fast moves goods faster. A court that enforces claims draws more deals. A port that records cargo draws more lenders. Venice stacked small forms of trust until they became a moat. But every moat has a cost. The more Venice relied on its routes, the more exposed it became to a shift in routes. For a long time, the city stood at the heart of the east-west trade flow. Then, new ocean paths began to pull value around the old system. The Portuguese push around Africa changed the logic of spice supply. It did not end Venice in one blow, but it showed the flaw in every choke point monopoly. If a rival can move the market around your gate loses power. That is the cold risk in asset control. The thing that makes you rich also tells your rivals where to attack. If you earn from the route, they hunt for a new route. If you price the toll, they build a bypass. If you own the dock, they search for another coast. Venice survived longer than most because its system was not one trick. It had ships, law, credit, news, coin, craft, ports, and state force. It had layers, and layers buy time. Yet the strategic post-mortem is clear. Venice did not build wealth by luck, it built wealth by owning the movement of wealth. The arsenal gave capacity, the convoy gave risk control, the warehouse gave asset control, the port gave tax, the ducat gave trust, the state gave force, the merchant gave volume. Put together, those pieces formed something more advanced than a trade hub. They formed a maritime supply chain empire, not land, flow, not a crown, a route, not just ships, a machine for turning risk into margin. For centuries, if Europe wanted Eastern goods, with less chaos, it passed through a Venetian system. And each time it passed, Venice took a cut, gained news, deepened trust, and tightened the chain. That is why the lagoon became a boardroom with sails. Thank you for watching. If you value sharp historical breakdowns of monopoly, leverage, capital, and power, like this video and subscribe. I'll see you in the next one. So here is the question. Was Venice a trading republic, or was it one of history's first fully integrated supply chain monopolies?